Welcome everybody to the BEL podcast. I'm joined today by my friend Ginny, who is the Freeze the Fall manager, band manager, momager extraordinaire. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you spending your morning with me.
Thanks for having me, Jesse. I
Of
couldn't think of
course.
someone better to have coffee with in the morning.
Yeah, I was just telling the band the other day. It's been too long since I've actually had coffee with you guys. So
I know. Well, I'm sure that we're going to have a number of reasons for you to come hang out with us in 2025. So
hey, I'm
it'll
looking
be
forward
good.
to that.
There'll be lots of coffees.
Why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself, and tell everyone? I mean, you're the manager of Freeze the Fall, but why don't you tell everyone what your role kind of looks like and a little bit about who you are?
Sure. Yeah. So, Ginny, I'm the other half of Craig and Ginny, and Aria's mom, but also manager for the band. And there's 6 parents that are involved in the band, and everybody has a role. It's there's quite a bit of machinery supporting the band from the background, but as the manager, I wear a number of hats for the band. Principally, I do all the coordination for the band, so coordinating all their schedule, gigs, rehearsals, recordings, all of that, like scheduling and working with 26 Films. I do all of that work. And then I collaborate with the other parents on other projects. So, in those 6 parents, Quinn's parents, Jennifer and Tyler, they run the whole merch program for the band, which is massive. We're fortunate that, Tyler's and Jennifer's business, that skill set lends itself really well to that. So they do all of that. And Krista manages the socials. I help support her in the background in terms of interacting on socials, but Krista's responsible for all the posting and scheduling and that sort of thing. So it takes a village for sure. Everybody's busy.
Well, I think like the dream is we're just gonna write really cool music and everyone's gonna love it, but you really got to be able to push it and continuously tap your audience, and like there's a lot more that goes into it than just writing music, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. You had sent me something a while ago, an article that I watched about, having great music is like 1/4 of the equation. And certainly we've learned a lot about that over the past couple of years. But it's been such a joy to support the band from the background. It does make you understand why there's so many talented people who never really get that opportunity to exit. We talk about the garage band idea all the time, and this engine in the background that was so naturally built around Freeze the Fall, just out of the natural skill sets of the families. I think it's kind of it's a rare thing for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the garage band thing, so let's jump into that. So can you tell me from your perspective, either as their now manager or just as a parent, like how did the band come to be? What's that story?
Yeah, it's funny because I think the observation of it from our end versus the way they tell it is it's not different. It's just different perspectives. I think from the parents' perspective, there was definitely a really pivotal moment between Quinn and Aria in middle school, and you've heard them talk about this in interviews where they spotted each other in the hallways, really kind of based on their band t-shirts. But it actually goes back a little further. I remember Quinn once mentioning Aria had dressed up as a particular character for Halloween one year, and Quinn recognized the character where 99% of people wouldn't. And so she reflected on that. And then that was kind of what started their noticing Aria in the hallways. And, but the funny part about that story that I don't think they ever mention is it was I think pretty much the last day of middle school that year, which would have meant Quinn was moving schools. So they would never see each other at school again. And Aria came running into my car, and I was picking her up from school, and she's like, "Mom, I met the coolest girl. She wants to jam and hang out." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. What's her name?" And Aria said, "I don't know. I didn't ask." So there was
Classic.
a chance we were never going to see her again. But as it goes, the kids go to the same musical school, and not more than a few nights later, we were all there in the audience, and I recognized Quinn because she had pointed her out walking away, sort of thing. And I was like, "Oh, that's that girl. We got to go find her." But by the time I found Aria, she was already with Quinn, and they were exchanging numbers and all that. And Quinn literally came over to our house, a few days later, with guitar in hand, and that was it. The kids were connected. And then for Jonah, about a month after that, I had posted a video on my Instagram, which is still there. But I had posted this video of a family jam where Aria was doing a Bring Me the Horizon bass cover, and a fellow named Sean Lightfoot, who's a lead singer of a really cool local cover band, spotted it, and he knew Jonah very well. Jonah had sat in with his cover band a couple of times when his drummer was out of town, and him and I used to work together. So he just reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, your daughter's really talented. Do you think she'd be interested in meeting this really talented 14-year-old drummer I know?" 14. And I'm like, I don't know. I'll check this little drummer out.
Yeah.
We'll see. So Craig and I and a friend of ours, we took Aria and we went down to the park to watch. Jonah was doing a sort of a solo thing in our Parks Alive here. And yeah, it was funny because it was the most awkward meeting in the history of ever. Aria walked up to him and was like, "Hey, do you want to jam sometime?" And he's like, "Sure." And that was it. That was the whole conversation. But thank goodness for Krista, because Krista spotted the interaction. Then she right away came over and introduced herself. And, as the parents kind of connected. And yeah, and then it wasn't, again, I think between themselves, they decided to choose some cover songs. And that very first day they jammed was at Jonah's house. And yeah, from there, it was kind of, they spent the whole summer together after that. Like they were inseparable and just started writing music. And it was quite something to watch, actually.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And as an outsider, again, like myself coming in and meeting everybody, you'd think that your families have been friends forever.
Yeah, we got very lucky there because, there's if it goes somewhere, you're really kind of in it together, right? And so we did get very lucky that the families all just kind of jived right from the beginning, and everyone was, I think it's safe to say everyone was like equally on board with the concept. I think a couple of us were more like, they're going to the Grammys, like maybe Krista and I. But I think everyone right from the beginning was very supportive. And even if all it ever was a great way for teenagers to spend time together doing something productive and safe and healthy, everybody was on board for that. Mm-hmm. So we got lucky that everybody got along really well and just made great friends. And now we spend Christmas together and hang out and all of that. So yeah, it's great. It's good. And I think it's good for the kids too, because it's all that support just built in. Mm-hmm. And they all feel like at home at all of our houses because, they come here, they eat all the things and hang out, and everybody's comfortable in everybody's space, which is good.
Typical teenager stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember trying to help Jonah with his moonwalk in your kitchen there.
And I also did the moonwalk not long ago.
Oh, nice.
We're still trying.
Yeah. Krista tells a really beautiful story too about, I think it was the first time they were jamming, and she's kind of listening and she goes, "I think that's pretty good." And then she goes and takes like a little closer listen. She's like, I think there's like actually something here. And then trying to explain that as like a mother, not trying to be like, yeah, my kid's great, but being like, I actually think this is pretty good. Do you have thoughts on that? No, for
sure. I mean, we've talked about that a lot. That even now there's this thing where people who it's maybe not their style of music or they, they're not really paying attention. There's still a moment where we can be talking to people and they're like, no, like they have a shot at doing some pretty cool things. But a lot of people, oh yeah, that's cute. Your kid's in a band. Yeah, it's cute, but it's also kind of awesome. Yeah. But it's funny because they wrote the song Insomnia was their first song. It's still one of my favorite songs that they've written, probably just because it was the first. And, it was a song about like insomnia, like sleep anxiety, essentially. And they played that first song for us. They met Jonah in like late July, early August. And that song they played for us as a family in mid-September. So it wasn't even 6 weeks when they wrote their first song. They still play that song live at almost every show. They tell us they'll never record it, but the moms love it. So we're hoping someday they'll do it just for us. But I remember the 6 of us all standing in Jonah's basement and they're like, "Hey, we want to play this song for you that we wrote." And it was like radio silence when they finished for a second. And I will never forget because I looked at Craig. So Craig is definitely, of the 6 parents, he is the music man. Like he's been in bands for years and he's a drummer and he's learning the audio. He does all their demo tracks and stuff. I looked at him for like validation. Same thing with Krista. I'm like, as a mom, I'm like freaking out. That was really amazing. But I think it was actually good. And Craig was the sort of litmus test. And he was like, yeah, that was kind of awesome, actually. Like, and again, go back in time. They were 14 and 15 years old at the time. So, certainly their songwriting has advanced significantly since then, but it's still a really beautiful song.
Mm-hmm. It's got a nasty bass breakdown too. So
I love that song. Yeah.
So they write their first song. They play a few covers. We've heard the story about One Left Standing and how that came to be. What were the steps to get from, like, say, there to the early recordings at Crown and Thieves that we all have?
You know, they had once they had the 5 songs, there's a couple of people involved in again, because you're trying as parents not to be we don't want to put pressure on them. We just want them to have fun and write music, but also to explore what it looks like to take the next step. And there's a couple of people involved in kind of taking that leap. One of them was Justin Gordon, just saying, you know, there are great producers in this town. It was him who said, like, let me introduce you guys to Jordan. We met other people too, but that was kind of the thing that catalyzed us. He's like, they've got 5 songs. Like, even if it's just so you have them on a CD someday later in your life, why not record them? So that was the seed was planted there a little bit. And then the thing that happened, like that got us thinking about maybe we do make some investments and try this out. But then the other thing that happened was once they went, so they, if you go back all the way to the beginning, they had been invited to participate in this like Broken Hearts Idol, which was a contest held at Crown of Thieves, hosted by Jason Parks at the time. And it was Justin Gordon who got them on that stage. And that stage was a couple of solo singers. I think there was a comedian, there was the band. Like it was a talent show, basically. And Freeze to Fall won. And they blew everyone's minds, really, with the music. So what they won was the opportunity to go back and open for Proper Man, which is Jason Parks' band that Justin Gordon drums for. And once we knew they were doing that, it was actually Tyler who said, you know, I think we should invest in recording them. Like if they don't have anything on YouTube, then nobody can see what they can do. So even for in my role, when I'm constantly looking for gig opportunities or applying to some of the small local festivals without any evidence of their ability to play music live, it was really hard to find them gigs. So we all decided, yeah, we'll equally invest. So the families each contributed, and we hired 26 Films, who we didn't even know at the time. It was just, I think Tyler had a friend who knew someone, and that's how we got connected to them. And I think they've told you this story, but when they walked into the green room that night, they're like, why are there kids in the green room? They're looking for the band. They were like, why are there children here? Anyway, so we spent the money to have them come out. And so those first 5 videos that you see are all from that night. And incidentally, they ended up also recording Proper Man that night. So they did videos for Proper Man too. But yeah, that made a big difference because that was that first, the cover that they did that night of Evolve was really the first piece of content that opened the door to the Reactor community for sure, which has been, I mean, that's been such a wildly outrageous, very cool thing to learn about. But yeah, that's how that kind of came to be. And right around the same time, we had started thinking about putting them in studio. And then, you know, we introduced them to a number of different producers, but there was like the skies opened and birds sang when they met Jordan. Like that was it.
Yeah.
He was the guy. So, you know, there was no real competition there, but yeah.
It was the blue nail polish.
The blue nail polish, the blonde streak in his hair, and he just talked to them like grown-ups, you know, like he didn't talk to them like kids and, oh, it's cute that you want to record music. He just right away was invested in their creative process and wanting to understand how they wanted to write music, and also taking the opportunity to teach and guide them too, because they are so still, you know, young. They have a lot to learn, and he found a really great way to teach but not take over, which I think was the biggest thing as parents. Like the 6 of us sat there and just grilled him. Like,
I bet.
there were 9 of us. Like it was like a panel interview in his studio. And I literally pulled out the old, why should we hire you? You know, like,
Yeah.
And Jennifer was, you know, had many questions. But yeah, so we kind of interviewed him that way, and he was great. I think everybody equally felt the same way about Jordan from the beginning. So just been and our biggest thing was we didn't want someone to come in and change who they wanted to be. We wanted someone who could help them formulate what they already knew they wanted to be. And that's really what Jordan did.
Totally. And so that relationship started, the EP kind of came and started, you know, working its way through. I remember you guys calling me and being like, you got to hear what's coming out of this. And
Yeah.
I had high hopes, but like the project we got blew us all away. And
Yeah.
I really think that that's part of what catapulted you guys into like acceptance with the Reactor community, Because we're
Yeah.
at like what? Like I think we just broke 200 individual reactions or something like that.
No, I think it's over 300 reaction videos,
Wow.
and over 80 unique reactors, I think now.
Crazy.
Old Man Yenny or someone is gonna like comment on this and be like, no, it's this. But we appreciate them. They track everything, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So many people out there doing so many great things for the band.
So, can you speak to me? Let's do this in two parts. So, first off, as the band manager, can you speak to me about how the reaction community has been, like how it felt seeing the band that you're managing get picked up, get introduced, get spoken about, critiqued, et cetera, et cetera? Can you talk about that with the reactors a little bit?
Yeah, happy to, because I've spent a lot of time interacting with the reactors, and that I will be totally honest, like hard on the sleeve. If you had said music reactor to me in July of 2022, I would have said, who's that now? Like, I would not have even known what that meant. I'm not someone who would have spent a lot of time on YouTube. I didn't really have any context for what that even was. But once those videos went out, and the kids have told this story a couple times, I think, but people tag you, so it automatic. I'm in the management with Krista on those accounts, and so you right away see the flag come out. And the first reaction was a little bit unkind, and not that the band or us as parents don't understand that constructive criticism is part of the journey. Like, if you're going to put your art out there will be people who like it and people who don't, and we prepared the kids for that. But this person was actually a bit cruel in his feedback, and so all of us got this really like, whoa, that's not great. So we didn't engage, and we just kind of stayed out of it. And so much so that I think it was the second reaction, which was this guy I know named Jesse.
Hey,
um,
whoever that
I
goof
think
is.
was the second. At least it was the second one we saw. If there was something in between, I don't know. But I think I might have been the first one to watch yours. Maybe me or Krista, not sure. And I texted the family to say, hey, there's a reaction. And I remember some of the parents being like, I don't even know if I want to watch it. Like, no, thanks. I'm like, no, this one is, you should watch it. Like, it's really good. And it's really, I don't know if on that day though, we could have had any understanding of where that would lead in terms of an entire community of reactors really embracing this young band. And I think what's so exciting about it for us is we get excited every time a reaction video comes out. Everybody watches it. The whole family watches them. Dear reactors, we all watch them. Everybody's watching. But I think what's exciting about it too is you can feel the sort of symbiotic excitement between the reactors and Freeze to Fall, in the sense that you get the idea that the reactors are excited to be part of this journey that this young band is on. And from our camp to yours, they're not just witnessing it, they're such an active part in it. Because when we write applications for festivals and things right now, these are some of the numbers we're including in, we're legit because look at this, right? So it's a really important part of marketing we could never have afforded on our own, if that makes sense. Like, it's this guerrilla warfare marketing style that reactors, and I wish more people understood it, because for the most part, and I can say this other than that one guy who I don't even know what that video is anymore, every single reactor that's ever reacted to Freeze to Fall has done so in a positive way. Some have had criticism, constructive criticism, but all in a really productive and wholesome way that respected them as artists, not just as kids, because that's not but as artists, and giving them space to create. So yeah, it's been a very, very cool experience to see how the reactor community can lift music up, because without them, I really don't know if we'd be in the same place right now. Like, I think the kids would still be writing great music and we'd still be working our butts off to do what we can, but that what's happening online is such an important part of getting noticed. And you can't, like, that same activity would have, like, the financial investment to get that same amount of traction. And it's not as, even if you spent all that money doing hundreds of thousands of dollars of ads, it's not engagement in the same way, right? Like, it's not the same. When you go and look at our videos, there's so many comments and likes and people sharing, and that to me is really because of the reactors and driving people to the channel to see it. There's nothing I love more than reactors who are like, stop what you're doing right now and just go subscribe to this young band. Like, go, like, leave my channel, and then come back.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to see how supportive it is, for sure.
Well, you know, like myself included, and I haven't been a reactor that long. Like I think I'm at the end of my third year, maybe going into my fourth. I might have that wrong though. And you see bands that maybe have 200,000 subscribers and now they're about to cross 1 million. And it like you feel like even though maybe you didn't contribute to all that growth, it felt like you got to watch it happen. And
Yeah.
with you guys, it's like we're really there at like the ground floor. Like we're,
Totally.
you know, like
And it is hard to get subscribers.
it's really hard.
I
Yeah.
feel for you guys, because it is hard to grow the subscriber base. It takes a lot of content, a lot of effort. So yeah.
Yep. And it's a really beautiful thing to get to see. I'm hoping the fruits of everyone's labor be what's driving a little bit of the success, right? Like
Yeah.
if I made one video, it's not going to turn you guys into a pro band, but if a whole bunch of us band together and do 5-6 videos each, then that might draw you guys enough attention to make the needle move a little bit. And
Yeah, and some of the band's goals, that's such an important part of it, because the Spotify numbers and Apple Music and all that, it's only one part of the equation. People really want to know, like, what do they look like live? How do people react to them when they're playing live music? And that's something that can only come from those videos. And that's why we were really excited to be able to start to put out some of the more live videos this year, because for a long time, the band had actually advanced significantly, but we were still relying on those early Crown of Thieves videos, which are still good. But they're no longer representative of what the band is on stage or where they're at. So this last summer, getting to do stuff like the Revelry show and then the Oodle Alley night, which is just starting to come out, has been
Patreon, y'all. Go to the Patreon. You can get it now.
Patreon. Come find us. But that's been really exciting too, to be able to, for people to start to see the evolution of them, because this is my introduction to the music industry has been a very steep learning curve, obviously, but if I've learned, one really big thing, it really comes down to you're only as good as your live content, because with no disrespect to the music industry, coming out with produced sound is great. And if you have a great producer and you have great music, all of that sounds great, but you still have to be able to walk on a stage and entertain people. And that's more than just singing the songs and playing the instruments. It's how do you interact with the crowd, and how do you, and that stuff has to evolve. And I think that's been such a big part of getting live content out there. And then having the reactors pick up the live stuff has been really fun to watch too.
I bet.
Actually, today, Bullet with Butterfly Wings came out on Spotify.
Drops today, December 31st. Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to it this morning.
I'm hoping that this video will be out within just a couple of days, but we are filming this on December 31st, so y'all know. But
Happy New Year.
Yeah, seriously, where did this year go?
Well, I just said this to the band the other day. They were here on a couple days ago, and I was like, if you guys actually sat down and just reflected on 2024, like, again, take your age out of it for a second, but you guys like recorded an EP, put out your first like storytelling music video, you played in different cities for the first time, you recorded your full second EP. Like, it's wild.
That's crazy.
It's been a crazy year.
Yeah.
I have a feeling 2025 might be crazier. But.
Hey, I'm here for it. I'm gonna cross my fingers for that one.
Yeah, me too.
So you mentioned your learning curve into the music industry. How, like, what does the music industry look like to you, and how has like your thoughts of it evolved in 2024?
I think like anyone who doesn't know an industry, maybe any industry, you go in with a lot of trepidation, and certainly this is an industry that people right away will tell you, be careful. There's a lot of darkness in this industry, and people will try to take advantage. And I think one thing is a little bit hard to articulate, but in a lot of ways, I'm very grateful that the band did start so young, because it forced the reality that as parents, we would be heavily involved. Like, if this started when they were 19 or 20, they could have been like, we don't need your help. And I don't know that they would have, but you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't have, our involvement would have been optional at that point, but it wasn't, because they were 14 and 15 years old. So they've had this natural sort of armor around them of people protecting and working, but also it's always, as their manager, been my goal to make sure that they are also learning it, because we won't always be in it. And so, for me, they're involved in every decision. Like, we don't make decisions for the band. We present them with options and maybe provide guidance on if we think it's a good decision or not a good decision, and kind of help them navigate. But they really do drive the ship, which I think is critically important for them as they grow and learn that it's more than making beautiful music. It's also a business. And if you want it to be your path, then you're going to have to invest as much in the business as you do, in the music itself. And so for me, I definitely went in with some ideas, did a lot of reading, a lot of talking to people. But I think for me, what shifted my understanding of the industry the most is that everything we've done has been achieved through a transfer of trust. So we've met, like we met you, which led us to Dane, you know what I mean? Like, in the reactor community in and of itself, building trust one reactor at a time, where they become more than just faces behind screens, but people who actually care about what happens to this young band. It's been the same way within the industry. So, Justin leading us to Jason and Justin leading us to Jordan leading us to Kevin Moore, like, it's been very, kind of organic, and we've really managed to build a team around the kids who every single person on that team fundamentally cares about what happens to them, and is also equally excited about the uniqueness of Freeze the Fall. I think that's one thing is, we definitely get that a lot from that industry of like, I'm here because I care about the kids, and I'm here because they have something that is hard to describe, but that hopefully takes them all the way to their dreams, which is very cool. Mm-hmm. But, I have a visceral memory of being in Las Vegas. It was 14 days after Glitch came out, and getting an email from 604 Records. And I was like, this has to be fraud. Instantly. I was like, wait, what is happening right now? And it was interesting because at the time I had, with the band and the families, created a list of 3 labels that if we were going to partner with a label, these were the 3 labels we were interested in. They were all indie labels and labels that we knew would be, would help to protect creative output and that sort of thing. And 604 was at the top of the list. And part of the reason was feedback we had. Part was it was Vancouver, so we could drive the kids there in a weekend. They wouldn't have to be on airplanes and things like that. So there's a lot of things there. But in my brain, that was like 2 or 3 years or 2 albums down the road. So that email, I literally deleted the email. I was pretty sure it was fraud. And then I went to their website, and their website literally said, we're experiencing a high level of fraud if you get an email from us. And I'm like, I knew it. It was fraud. So I went, so the fellow did leave there was a signature in the email. So I went to their website and started sleuthing their team, and couldn't find all the names. So then I just called them. Like, this is who I am. I got an email from this person named Justice, which is a very cool name, but also, really, is your name Justice?
Yeah.
Like, that was how I was in the first moment. Anyway, so I left. I said, if he's a real person and he wants to talk to me, then here's the number he can call me at. And he called me like an hour later. And I was literally like jumping up and down on the bed in Las Vegas, looking at Craig going, 604 Records. But it was funny because the way that conversation went was I essentially told Justice, we don't need you. Like, we're not there yet. They're kids. Like, this is what we're doing. This is the path we're on. And I give 604 a lot of credit for accepting that and then staying by our side and just continuing to inquire where they might be able to help and where they could add strength. And that was where the distribution deal came from, was us basically saying we're not ready to sign these kids to any sort of long-term contract. Like, right now it's 1 album. We'll see what happens. And so we partnered with them on distribution. And again, there's a lot of legitimacy that comes with having a label by your side. And so it's a fine line, right? But we had a lot of people going, oh, labels, like, but I don't know if that has to be true. I think if you can find partners at any level in the industry that see you as people and not as, products, then you can do pretty well. And they've been amazing partners to us. So it's been really good.
Yeah. And even just like the little bit of engagement that I've had with them, like, you could tell how proud they are to be working with you guys, right? Like, and like we said earlier, like, it's kind of expected that you can play your music and that you have good music, but it's the rest of it that really counts. And the fact that they can build such strong relationships with anybody who's willing to give them the time of day, I think it really speaks a lot to the band and their potential success, right?
Totally. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
No, that's exciting. I'm going to use that as a segue. So, how would you describe Freeze the Fall, and what makes Freeze the Fall Freeze the Fall?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been having this conversation a lot because, as you know, we're 26 Films is making a documentary on the band right now. So we've been having that conversation. You know, I think if you ask, I always describe it as 9 of us because there's 6 parents and 3 kids. There's also siblings involved, but a lot of times they're like, "Do I have to go to another Freeze the Fall gig?" But I think if you ask all 9 of us, chances are we'd all have slightly varying different answers. But I think from my perspective, working as the band's manager, it's a combination of they're just like innate friendship, because the way they met and that sort of how it kind of came together, where they just thought the same about, like, they can go into separate rooms to write lyrics and come back with almost the same lyrics. It's wild.
That's
Like they
wild.
just are so melded into the way they write their music. It's very cool. But also it's their work ethic and balance at the same time. Like, we set a schedule for them just to keep it regular and routine so it fits in with school and everything else. But no one has ever told Freeze to Fall, you have to go write a song, or you have to go practice, or you have to get ready for this gig. Like, they're on it. They know what they want out of all this, and they work very hard at it. But they're also like these weird old little souls who totally understand that they also need to do other things, and and connect outside of music, which is why they have their horror movie nights and whatever else. Like, they just kind of get it in a way that I don't think a lot of people, maybe even adult bands, like, get. And as long as they can hold on to that thinking, I think that will drive their success for sure.
No, I love that. That was a great answer for that. And I am going to ask you, like, as a mother, as a parent, is this kind of like what you expected the journey to look like? Could you have predicted, even just like the friendship, like, take the success aside, could you have predicted that this is what it was going to look like?
No, interesting. Like, for me, like, my context is Aria, obviously, and Aria is an incredibly shy, introverted person in regular life. So to see what she does up on stage is it's mind blowing every time to me. I still ugly cry most of the time. But interestingly enough, now, as a parent, we all kind of feel like everyone's parents in the band now. Like, they're just this little unit, and we all have to take care of each other's kids because that's the way it kind of goes, right? But for me, I was really great. We actually changed Aria's schools to be where Quinn and Jonah were at the time, because Aria was on a different catchment trajectory. And it couldn't have come at a better time because, it was just that transitory time of middle school, and friendships are changing anyway, and things were shifting. And I think it was a really great time for Aria to kind of follow passion. And she's such a creative person with her art and music and stuff. So for me, I think, yeah, I could never have predicted that this is how it would go. Like, if you told me 3 years ago, Aria would be rocking out on stages in front of hundreds of people, I would have no. But yeah, to watch the growth in all of them. I think I sent you a video the other day from the gig at Clancy's in Penticton there. And they had the entire place moshing. I'm like, what is happening?
And Aria left the stage too, didn't she? She went.
Yeah, she came down in the audience, and she's just ripping. Like, man, if we get her untethered from the cord, I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't even know what's going to happen at that point. But yeah, it's very cool to watch. And I think, it's interesting because as a trio, the other thing that I reflect on a lot for this band is, from the very beginning, they decided they were a trio of equal value. They never wanted there to be, someone singled out or someone, because they write the music equally, they perform the music equally, they invest in everything. So they take all their we had one interviewer who was like, I only want to interview one of them. I'm like, well, then you can't interview Freeze the Fall because that's not how they roll.
Sorry.
So, you take the band or you don't. And there was a time even, where we've had other industry people be like, well, we could just interview this person this time or that person the next time. I'm like, yeah, that's not how they want to be. They are so celebratory of each other's growth and how they contribute. And I think that is the other magic of them, is that they're just there's no egos in the group at all. They're very equally invested. They all have their strengths. Like, they all add different things into. And the fact that they've found those things and they know how to work them together, I think makes for a pretty special dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's, I've been fortunate enough to sit in on a couple of rehearsals, and I've seen a handful of shows now. And like the way that like they'll be rehearsing, they're playing, they're doing their parts, and when it stops, it's like they immediately go and they like compliment each other on very unique things. And it's not
Yeah.
just like, "Hey, good job, we made it through." It's like, "Hey, I noticed that thing that you did this time, and I really like that."
Yeah.
And like just like you said about like some adult bands, and I'm not trying to poo poo on anybody, but I don't know if anyone's listening that closely. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's really special how they have that.
It's funny that you say that because when we filmed VHS, the music video for VHS, that was two extremely intense back-to-back days. Like the shed scene was one day, the second scene, the like where the band's playing was the very next day. Incredibly physically exhausting days. And I will never forget because Aria was like strapped to the ceiling for 7 hours in plastic clothing, basically. Like she had an intense job and she gave it everything. They all did. It was amazing. But I always remember we got in the car to go home, and the first words out of Jonah's mouth, he was like, Aria, you annihilated that today. He's like, I don't even know how you did that. And this is from a young man who just finished drumming that song 16 times in a row. Like it was exhausting for all of them. But yeah, they're just always, watching out for each other, and they're definitely stronger together. So I think they know that, and that's how they operate.
So I have another question for Mom Ginny here. So if we go, it was just the anniversary of filming the barn videos from last year, and again, I couldn't imagine how cool that must have been. Like seeing everyone all like dolled up, they got all the makeup on, the outfits, the costumes, like pro cameras everywhere. Like that's
Yeah.
one experience. Fast forward to Halloween, and your daughter is strung to the roof with pretend spikes through her hands, and she's bleeding everywhere, being tortured. Like, can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll start with the barn. The barn was incredibly fun, and I worked very closely with 26 Films on the develop, like all that staging and everything was all borrowed and bank borrow and well, there was no stealing, but you know what I mean. So it took a lot to bring all that together. And you're not wrong. The kids walking in there for the first time, where there was, I think it was 21 people in the barn between makeup artists and lighting techs and sound techs. And that's why we did 5 videos with that Kickstarter funding. Was when I sat down with Evan and said, so we want to film music videos in a really cool venue, and I want to do 5 of them all at once. Everyone was like, cool. Like I don't think
Let's
either
go.
one of us had any concept that nobody would do that. Like we were just like, cool. So we'll film 5 music videos, and we'll try to make them look a little bit different with lighting. And, if anyone now, I would be like, nobody would do that, but it worked. And then fast forward, the kids really, really wanted to do a true storytelling video. And they wanted to do it for VHS in particular because of the horror inspired vibe of it. And once Evan got into it, like, man, diving into the mind of Evan is just a beautiful, brilliant thing. He's such a creative, super genius. But he would come to our house and sit out by the fire pit with us, and him and I would get going on costume ideas and stuff. And it was hysterical because I do a lot of the costuming with the band. And I'm pretty sure if someone had been like monitoring our text messages in the week leading up to that video, like someone was calling the authorities, because Evan would text me and be like, hey, do you have like a box or a trunk that a teenager could fit inside? And I was like, and I would be like, well, does it need to lock, or does it like just wrap? And yeah, he'd be like, also, do you know where we can get some bones? And I'm like, human bones? And he's like, well, not necessarily. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, what are we doing with bones?
Yeah.
Anyway, there was some pretty funny stuff. And in the development of the costume, so Aria and I actually built her costume. But it was all Evan's idea. Like, he's like, we're going to like wrap bass strings and we're going to do all this stuff. And so Aria was like literally sewn into that costume that day with bass strings all around her. The boots are laced with boot string or bass strings and stuff like that. So it's quite something to see it, but, and there might be, I don't know. I don't think it makes me a bad mom, but it was like, cool.
Great.
Cool. And Aria loved it. She was so excited. And Aria does a lot of design and costume drawings and stuff like that. So she actually helped with the design of that. She was taking a fashion design course at the time, and she actually submitted the costume as one of her concepts, which was very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. So needless to say, you enjoyed the whole process of that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm sure we've had fans comment on this. It was interesting to me that before the very first gig, like before they even got on stage, they had this very clear goal of having a visual aesthetic. They didn't just want to walk on stage in t-shirts and jeans. They never did. Like from day one at 14, 15 years old, they're like, no, we want to have like a look and a feel to the way we walk on stage. So if you're ever at a Freeze the Fall gig and you look at their costumes, there is always something tying the costumes together. There's always something, and sometimes you have to look really hard to figure out what it is. But when VHS came out, all of a sudden it was the color red. And so if you were at, there was a show in Vancouver for the first time ever, Freeze the Fall came out, and each of them had red on. Well, you were at that gig. Yes, and that was related to the song. So they're very purposeful about the costuming. They have this real flair for sort of vintage meets modern. And I have a lot of fun with them on the costumes because they always have the ideas and like, we want to look like this. And then I'll help them kind of source it and bring it together. But that's been a big part of, and that's why I'm like, who are you guys?
Yeah, seriously.
Having that forethought 2 years ago that we're like, we want the production to include the way we walk on the stage, and what people see and experience includes what we look like when we walk out there. And they're so thoughtful about that piece, which I think is really exciting for people, because we are starting to get those like, what will they be wearing? Mm-hmm. And not that it overtakes the music, but the way they do it blends into the music, which I think is really very cool.
Well, that's one of those pillars that, like, we're assuming the music is going to be good. They're going to be able to play it, but you're bringing your brand into it, and you're telling us what your music's about through your art and through your look. And that's just another leg to stand on, right?
Totally. And we have some fun with Jonah because, I think like girl costuming always has more bells and whistles and things like that. And not only is he male, so there's less options oftentimes with male costuming, but also he's behind the kit. Mm-hmm. So we're always trying to make sure that Jonah is involved in that look and feel and that aesthetic. And him and I have had some laughs. So I'll be like, Jonah, what about this? And he's like, that's a little spicy, Ginny. I don't know about that. Okay, I'll dial it back. But he's such a great sport, and he has really come to, I think, enjoy the costuming part as everybody keen to be kind of stepping into that piece too, which is very cool.
Well, and I obviously can't speak for the ladies in the band, but myself being at one point a teenage boy, I remember thinking it would be cool to do all that stuff, but then when it came showtime, I was like, no, just hoodie and jeans. Like this is what I'm comfortable in. This is all I'm gonna wear. And I really admire him for that.
He's such a sport about it, and I think he understands that it's part of the gig. So he's just as involved when we're sitting figuring out costumes for the next gig or whatever. He's right in there, and like, how do we want it to look and feel? And so I think that's pretty exciting.
No, I love that. Yeah, good for them all. I was gonna say good for him, but good for them all, honestly. Okay, so as we kind of get towards the end of this here, I just as a parent, like, how has this whole journey been for you?
It's interesting. We all, as parents, are doing this off the side of our desks. Like I was trying to map it out for the band one day, so they, would fully comprehend how much work goes on behind the scenes. Because, the best I can figure, Jennifer and Tyler are doing somewhere between 6 and 8, maybe 10 hours a week with merch and sales and all that kind of stuff. My husband, Craig, doing all the sound stuff. He's easily putting in, 10 to 15 probably hours a week. I, on any given week, probably 20 to 30 hours a week on band related stuff. And that's so for every hour the band is working, there's at least another hour to 3 that is going on behind the scenes. But I think what's really interesting about it is every single one of us is having so much fun supporting them. Like, as a parent, now I'm like, what was I doing at night 2 years ago? What were my evenings when I wasn't, doing all of this? But no, it's really exciting. And I think we're all starting to get excited about what comes next for the band and some of their goals and just helping them reach for it. I have a very complex day job. It's heavy and the content is difficult. And what I have found this job has done for me is really allowed me to come home at the end of my regular workday and kind of turn that off and shift to this thing that's very familial driven and very goal oriented for the kids and for the band. And so, yeah, for me, it's really fulfilling. And I think all the parents would say the same, that it's a really cool journey to be on with this band. And like we tell them all the time, like, no one's ever going to work harder for you than we will. So for as long as you need us, we're here, and we'll keep, supporting you guys from the back and making sure that it can move forward. But yeah, it's kind of fun. And now we're like, we don't make vacation plans anymore because we have no idea where the band is going. So we may just be going wherever they're going.
Lots of Vancouver vacations.
Yeah, well, we're hoping to venture further than Vancouver in 2025. We're having conversations about some different opportunities, and we've put applications out to some very cool festivals. But again, that, we don't know yet how those things will turn out, but we're definitely starting to envision a broader reach and stepping outside community a little bit more and getting them hopefully more and bigger stage opportunities and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of goals still on their list. So
I could imagine.
Yeah.
And for the end of this, could you give me like an insight into some of those goals? You could do long term, you could do short term, but like where are we hoping to go over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so right now they've just started working on a full length album, so that will no timeline on that or how long that will take. But I think really right now, short term goals are the band definitely wants to get a little bit further into the market. So they would love to be playing like Calgary, Toronto, maybe dipping down into the US, like starting to try to find some opportunities. So one of the big things is looking for some of those opportunities to do smaller, more condensed touring type opportunities over the next 18 months, 24 months kind of thing. And that could be on their own. Maybe there's an opportunity opens up where they could open for somebody cool. Who knows? That would be fun. So yeah, right now we kind of take it one day at a time. Like over the next several months, we'll be starting to release the next EP. The hope, and of course, as you guys know, like end of high school is approaching. Like Quinn will graduate in June. The other two will graduate in January next year. They both accelerated their graduation to be finished a bit earlier.
Wow.
So I think that following spring will be the big moment where they're all free to kind of go and do next things. They all also want to do some university and stuff. So they're looking at definitely achieving a balance between doing the band, but also taking whether it's online courses or maybe they might all choose like, we'll do this semester at school and then we'll tour over here. Which I love for them because I think, Quinn said it to me very beautifully once. She's like, my inspiration comes from learning and the things that I learn and see around me. So I don't want to quit learning, and none of us would want that for them. So music is definitely their priority, and they all want to travel the world and play big festivals and big shows. But I think we'll manage to find some balance where they can also be pursuing these other interests on the side and keep growing as humans and not just as musicians. So I think that'll be an interesting next couple of years. But I would suspect when the full length album is done will be the moment where we're all hoping that the band can do the thing they want more than anything in the world, which is to go and see the world a little bit with their music. Because by then they'll have, close to 20 songs in the market, and that becomes much more feasible to go out on tour and play some bigger shows. So I think that's 2-3 years in the making, and we'll see where it leads.
Well, and to be fair, just like the last year itself has been crazy. So it's probably pretty hard to predict, like what is the slope of this thing as we're going along, right?
Yeah, it's a bit complicated because in some ways, and I've explained this to the band several times, like in some ways, this is a train that we're already on, and you don't always get to choose the stops of the train. Like it's a complex industry that way. When opportunity comes, you kind of have to take those opportunities, and that's where, as they have to start navigating, post-secondary and the band life, it'll be a little bit more complex because they'll, somebody's going to say, hey, do you want to come and open up for so-and-so? And in theory, you need to be able to say yes to that. So they're all working at building the schooling in a flexible way that they can continue to respond to those opportunities, because you can't really predict it. We know some of the things that are important, like getting more and more stage experience is important. So that's the goal this year, is getting them hopefully on some bigger, broader stages so they continue to grow that live experience. And then taking that and hopefully getting them to a touring place after that would be awesome.
No, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
And I'll be here for it. You tell me when and where, I'll be there.
I'm like, listen, Mr. Sound Engineer.
Yeah.
Oh, we have this conversation all the time, Jesse, because even amongst the 6 parents, we're like, even if they went on some sort of tour a year from now, we're like, so who can take vacation for 6 weeks? Like, how are we going to manage that? But the one thing I know for sure is that we'll figure it out, because this is such a rare and unique dream. And I think if any of us were less than 100% confident that they're capable of it, maybe it would be different, but we're all so supportive and certain that this is their path. Like they were born for this. It just seems like where else would you be?
Yeah,
I don't know.
seriously.
And I totally get that, there's balance to that. And one of the things I love so much about the fans is their concern for the band. Like what I see in the comments and stuff all the time where they're like, I don't want to see the band burn out. We want to make sure that they stay healthy and well. And, I love that the fans think that way, because it's the very same way that we think. And it's why we basically said to everyone in the industry, until the youngest one is a grown-up, we will always be standing between you and the band.
Yeah.
Like they write music and they do a beautiful job of it and they're learning the industry. But in the meantime, they're also young adults growing into, adult humans, and they have to be able to do that in a way that's safe and allows them to do this. But again, I go back all the time to like all the things teenagers could be doing, and this is what they're choosing to do is pretty great.
Yep. Yeah, for real.
And the music they write is
phenomenal.
It's awesome. Wait till you hear what's coming. I know I've said this to you before, but yeah, I am constantly mystified by their process and their ability to write music that moves people the way that it does.
Well, hey, you gave me that heads up last time for the last releases. You said wait till you hear it, and I was still floored. And I'm assuming I'm going to be this time as well.
Well, and we're literally in the middle right now of filming the next music video. So, and it is wild.
I bet.
So,
and cold.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Well, yeah, again, sometimes we do wish they had named themselves something else.
Like a warm, hot summer. There's a band name.
Yeah, their vibe has this cold, frozen vibe to it, but that's good. Yeah,
that's good.
We're all getting used to it.
Is there anything else that you would like to add or touch on before I let you go here?
No, just thanks so much for having me. And, I think we love for the fans and reactors to have the opportunity to keep getting to know the band a little bit better. And we also are grateful for patience. The fans have been very patient, and just in the sense of like, there's so many interviews and things, but again, the keeping balance for the band to be able to be at school and do their thing there, and then focus on writing music and stuff like that. There's only so many things we can fit in. So we know there's people out there been waiting to interview them and stuff for a while, but we only do so many things in a month, and so we're getting there. But yeah, grateful to everybody out there. The Reactor community has our heart. Thank you. It's been a very cool journey.
No, I could imagine. And just the same, I appreciate all the support that you've not only just given me, but the whole community. I know like explaining a reaction video or the reaction community to people sometimes feels weird or sounds weird, but once you get like involved in it, you just see it's just a whole bunch of caring people that just really want to see you succeed. And if they can offer even like words of support, like it's amazing how far that can go. So I personally really appreciate you. Your care
I know
and support.
You and I have talked about this before, but literally in our conversations with 604, it was one of the first things we said, like, you cannot shut the music down for reactors. Like that's a deal breaker for us, because they've been so instrumental in how this has unfolded. And the cool thing about that label is they right away were like, why would we do that? Like, that's amazing. Like, I'm like, great, cool. So we're on the same page then. But yeah, it's such an important thing. And we're just very grateful every time we see a new face or a returning face. We still, just so everybody knows, I'll give you this little insider tip. We have a family chat, a text message called We're With the Band, obviously.
Of course.
Of course. And literally every reaction video, whoever sees it first sends it to the whole family. So we do literally see all of them. And we're just super grateful for how hard everybody works to help support the band, and every little bit helps. It's a hard dream to chase down, but you guys are making it possible. So thank you for that.
No, and thank you. Like I say, I really appreciate you being here. It's been a lot of fun chatting with you. Can't wait to see you guys again.
I know. It's coming up. Hopefully there should be March.
Okay.
I told you, keep some dates available in March.
I can be ready for March. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone. Thanks for watching. See y'all on the next one. Well, that was lots of fun.